We all know that the right habits and mindsets can be transformational in how we live our lives. But among the sea of advice online, it can be challenging to know who to trust with these important life decisions. At The Standard, we answer those questions and introduce you to some of the most successful people in the world in their fields and the habits and the mindsets they use to achieve their success. To learn more about our social platform, head on over to www.thestandardapp.com. And now, your host, myself, Chris Pallatroni. Welcome to another episode of The Standard. I'm your host, Chris Pallatroni. And today we had the amazing Madeline Dolente. She is out of New Zealand. I'd say she's a fitness coach, instructor, but that would be well underselling her credentials. The lady is certified in like everything. And as you'll hear in our conversation, she's been at the fitness game from a very early age. And she's done everything, although she does love obstacle courses and Spartan races and spin classes and CrossFit and nature hikes and runs. So lots to unpack in this. This is probably the fittest guest we've had and the fittest guest I can think that we're going to have for quite some time. So she has got a tremendous amount of knowledge to share with you. And in this particular episode, we do a deep dive into just the way she thinks about exercise and nutrition. We talk about her best habit that serves her well right now, as well as her best mindset. And then we get a little bit into coaching because she spends so much of her time coaching individuals. We start looking at like why people struggle to better themselves and what is the one thing that they could do to really take charge of their life and action. So had a lot of fun time. She's got an infectious personality, as you'll see here. And so without further ado, this is Madeline Dolente. We made it.
Awesome.
Oh my
Finally.
God. How are you today?
Pretty good. I just taught some classes this morning, and
Yeah.
so I'm making a decision today with which team to represent for the Obstacle World Championship, which is like the Olympics of Obstacle World. It's pretty crazy because this is like the Olympic stage where it's going to be a qualifier
Okay.
for 2028. So I think I'm going to represent Australia.
Nice.
Because New Zealand's cool, but there's like, so for example, the women's rugby team is number one in the world. They haven't lost one game. Literally number one in the world. And rugby, for some reason, is becoming a really big sport amongst women.
Okay.
And the All Blacks are like the number one team in the world, but the women's rugby, they're the Ferns. They're like the number one in the world. Anyway, you never see them on a commercial. Here, people don't even go to games. And these women should be examples for like the girls to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it really should be. If you have a woman prime minister, like you would think you would like celebrate these women rugby players. No, not at all. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
oh man. What is the this is so naive because I'm strictly a runner. That's like all I do. But why world obstacle? So what is it called? It's called because I know you do Spartans as well. So what's the difference between the two of those?
Okay, so the obstacle course world championships is the Olympics of obstacle course right now. So 51 countries will be represented in September in Belgium. Now, obstacle course world championship is essentially they're doing the Olympics to find out the athletes because in 2028, obstacle course world championships, which Joe DeCina from Spartan Races is
Mhm.
pretty much behind it all. They're bringing obstacle course world championship. They're bringing obstacle course to the Olympics because they think that it will encourage kids to get active in sports.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, for example, like in New Zealand, I know the guy who owns the professional baseball team here. He said kids don't want to play baseball anymore. They don't want to play basketball. Like they don't want to play sports. So one of the reasons the world is putting obstacle course racing is trying to get kids to do stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because now kids maybe not your kids, but like a lot of kids are like just using the phone and stuff. I mean, even kids that were active when they're little. So they're like on the phone, on the computer. So to get kids to be more active, they're doing the obstacle course race. So one of the reasons I was going to represent New Zealand was just to get kids like playing because there's no
Yeah.
obstacle course gyms here at all. And there are like in Australia, there's like 50 of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but the thing is, I don't know. It's going to take a long time to get New Zealand. I mean, we're like 15 years behind.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I have two kids and they're all about tech. And we like, when I was a child, I think the iPhone came out in like the early 2000s. So like we didn't run into that issue of like just
Yeah.
wanting to play video games. And I jokingly say plug into the machine, but I got a 11-year-old and a 9, and I mean they are like foaming from the mouth to like go back to a video game. Like every time I see them, I'm like there's a real world. You can play with your friends like in the real world and like
Yeah.
go into the video game. So that's awesome. Like anything to encourage that, I'm a supporter of.
Well, and that's why I'm working that kids camp in
Yeah.
Vermont for Jodacina, because it's all about the kids only get a half an hour on their phones at night, and they're calling.
Uh,
I was watching
yeah.
watching the if you see the podcast with Jodacina on Joe Rogan, kids are like crying. They call their parents like, "We hate you. You're on the couch drinking wine." It's so funny.
Oh my God. The few 30 minutes they have is used to complain about it. That's so cool. Oh my Lord. Well, we've got some fun stuff to talk about. You probably are the most active, fittest person I've had on this podcast, and even that I have scheduled. I was looking through just some of your bio. There's so much you do. And so rather than me like butcher this, maybe you can give us a little bit of a overview as to like who is Madeline and like
Okay.
what do you do? Because I mean, you have here 86 certificates. I don't even know what that even means. Like you have to be certified in everything. So like walk us through like who are you and like what is your world of fitness look like? Because there's so much that you do.
Okay. Do you want me to start now?
Yeah, go for it. Let's let's
Okay.
let's hear this.
Okay, so my name is Madeline Dolente and recently married Peterson. I started fitness basically growing up. My mother had cancer, so fitness became an outlet for me. So I started doing fitness when I was younger, played soccer all growing up, and then ran cross country in college and really found a passion. Like when I was playing sports and um, doing classes, I just had so much fun. I love sports because I developed a lot of friendships out of it, and it just became a place where I saw myself excelling and working together with other people. So out of that, I started teaching aerobics in college, and I began with step aerobics, which you might remember. And I may be dating myself, but in New Zealand, they're actually offering step classes now. So I started out with step aerobics, and then I began doing kickboxing. And each year, I I learned a new discipline. So for one year, it was like taekwondo, where I got my first belt. Another year, it was boxing, so I worked with some professional boxers. Another year, it was spinning. So Johnny G, who created spinning, I got to work with him. And each year I got into adventure racing another year. So each year learned a new discipline. So now I have like 86 certifications. So these certifications, some are like a weekend certification, and some I put a year, 2 years into. My Spartan SGX certification was like a 3-year program. I
Mhm.
think the guy who created Jodacina wants to challenge people, so everyone doesn't pass automatically. But the reason I spent all this time and money, I kind of joke around that if I didn't have all these certifications, I would have a house.
Totally.
But the reason I spent all this time in the certification is because fitness is really a passion for me. And I've had the opportunity to train so many brilliant people and people with complicated issues like diseases, um, other challenges. So in order to be the best trainer that I could be, it's about constantly learning and evolving. And I think, we've all seen over COVID with all the challenges, if you're not ahead of the game, you're behind it. And with COVID, it's forced a lot of people to be uncomfortable and to change with the times. And, if you didn't change with the times, you may not have a job. So for me, I'm always looking to see what's the next trend. And if I have a client who's extremely successful and asks me about a new fitness program, I want to be able to tell her about it. And the only way I can tell her about it or him about it is to go out there and learn. And I think learning is what keeps me motivated and it keeps my clients coming back to me.
Oh my God, there's so much to unpack there. But the question that's coming to mind is like, I mean, your whole life has been about fitness in one way or another, clearly. What's your favorite? I mean, do you have a favorite at this point?
I love the Spartan racing. I
Okay.
mean, I love the obstacle course racing because for me, trail running is like it's an escape. Like I feel like when I'm on the trails, nothing else matters, and it's just being one with nature is so fun. It's like when you're running along a hill or up a mountain and you look out and you see this whole city in front of you. To me, I'd rather be on that mountain than in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
So when I'm out and about and then the sun is shining, you come through around the turn, you feel the sun coming through the leaves, or the leaves are changing colors. It's beautiful. And then the obstacles, they excite me and scare me. So when I'm able to successfully get across the rings or an Olympus obstacle when I'm climbing, that that strength from the upper body as well as the thrill of climbing a mountain or flying down it, the culmination of both really just excite me. So I think the obstacle course racing is exciting and challenging.
Oh my
I
God.
really enjoy it.
Yeah, you had me at the trail running for every reason you mentioned. So I'm a big runner, and literally for every reason you mentioned. It used to be about staying in shape. But over the years, it became more about mental health. It became just being in nature. I think nature has a phenomenal way. I write a lot about nature just because there's so much perspective it helps you gain.
Hmm.
In a lot of ways, it helps you sort of like get more creative. It helps you reduce your stress levels. It helps you realize like we're this tiny little thing in a much larger ecosystem too. And I find that actually
Right.
very comforting to sort of get out of your own head in a lot of ways and recognize like, we're just part of something much larger, which I personally enjoy. You lost me at the obstacles because I'm just not an obstacle guy. So, but I can appreciate why you like Spartan so much. And you just completed a Spartan race, right? And you did fairly well in it too.
I did, they have what's called a trifecta weekend. So there's basically three different distances. One's a sprint, so think of a 5K.
Yep.
Then there's a super, if you think of like a half marathon, and then a beast, which is like a marathon. So each distance also has a relative amount of obstacles. So for the longest distance, you're looking at like 30 to 50 obstacles. So my first race I did was a super and I placed seventh. My second race was a sprint and I placed fifth. And then my third race on Sunday was the longest of them, which is called a beast, and I placed second.
Yay. That must have felt good.
it,
Nice.
it was awesome. It's nice to podium, and it was the Australian World Championships. So that qualified me to race for the Australian and New Zealand Olympic teams, essentially for the obstacle course World Championship.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, congratulations on that. So let's
Thank
dive
you.
into your habits and mindsets. W- you know, when did habits and mindsets, just the ability to have like a routine or stay focused on something, like when did this really start to take hold for you? Like, has it always been part of who you are? Because I know there's so much discipline that comes in with getting all these different certifications and just let's just be honest, maintaining your fitness year after year is no easy thing to do, even if you love it. So, like, for you, do you remember when the idea of forming positive habits really was part of your lifestyle?
Well, so I'm going to go to a very deep part because I thought a
Yep.
lot about this myself. And so I mentioned that I lost my mom to cancer,
Yep.
and so my mom got cancer every 5 years. So you can imagine the challenges that one would have when you have a tumor inside you that's growing, right?
Yep.
So I watched my mother, who was extremely talented, was a model for Ford and then Elite when she was younger. And I watched her put a lot of effort into something, and then she would have to go in the hospital. So when you watch someone who tries something and then they're not able to complete something, to me, that was a big message. And I saw the frustration she experienced, but to me, I never understood why she couldn't complete it, right? And when you're young, you see the disease. So later on, in my later 20s, before she passed, I realized, wow, she's have all these challenges. She's tried to do all these things and was never able to complete them. While the reason I had that desire to complete everything I put my mind to is because I watched someone do the opposite.
Hmm.
And it's a very sad thing to say, but by completing things, whether it was my dance class or my high school graduation or my college or my executive MBA or my fitness certification or a race, there was this huge satisfaction in completing something. So I say this because it comes from a very deep and honest part of me. But oftentimes we look at our lives and you see, let's say, a broken home, and then someone says, well, I didn't have a successful marriage because I came from a broken home, or I grew up poor, so that's why I'm
Hmm.
poor today. I used something that I saw and said, my mother has challenges, so she's not able to complete something, but I'm never going to allow myself to have a reason not to complete something, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
So I saw, and maybe I'm doing this, part of it was like, I want my mom to be able to complete something,
Yeah.
but I saw that desire to want to complete. And so everything I've ever done, if I put my mind to it, I refuse to back down.
Yeah.
And so it's helped me achieve a lot of things. And I think all the things I've achieved, anyone could. I mean, my senior year, I decided to run for the cross country team. And, I hated running, but I wound up loving it. And I just realized that if I spend time doing it with people who enjoy it, then I know that one day I'll enjoy it. Now I absolutely love running. So I think sometimes seeing someone not be able to do something can motivate you to do something. And for me, my desire to complete something and achieve something came from that.
Yeah. So that started when you were in your teens then. Like, I know you said your mom passed in your 20s, but is that around the
From when I
time?
was 5 years old.
Okay, so this has just been part of who you are your whole life.
Exactly. I mean, when I remember, my parents never forced me to do anything, but I remember when I was like 5, my dad said, if you don't learn how to ride the bike, you're not coming in the house.
Oh Lord.
So what did I do?
You learned to ride
I got on
the
I
bike.
got on my bike, I'm not kidding, and I went to the school and challenged the boys to a race.
That makes
I'm
complete
like,
sense. Very fitting, very fitting. Well, let me ask you this then, just to play a little bit as devil's advocate, because I know you know so much about mindsets and habits and whatnot. I think there's this idea out there that, you do have to have the grit and the perseverance to, like, when you say you're going to do something, carry through. And I completely align with that mentality. There's another part of it that says that, like, you have to give yourself some grace to recalibrate your approach from time to time and not give up, because I don't think that's exactly the intention behind the recalibration, but just the idea that you may change your direction at one point prior to having completed something. So I'm curious for you, is do you embrace both concepts of, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to finish it, which it sounds like that's sort of what you were saying there. But what about a situation in which whatever you've committed to, I don't know, it's not the right path for you before you've seen it all the way through? Do you still have to check off that box and get it completed, or is there some grace there for you to recalibrate your approach prior to completion?
well, so there's this double-edged sword, right? Because if you always complete everything and maybe something's not meant for you to complete, you can do damage. So, for example, the very first marathon I did, I was teaching like 30 classes a week. I was
Hmm.
director of 2 gyms. I was working as an IT consultant for Bearing Point, which became KPMG Consulting. And I was teaching 30 to 50 classes a week. I don't even know where the time fit in, but and directing these gyms. So I go to run this marathon, and I think I'm like a superwoman. I was going out to the bars with my friends, and I had 3 hours of sleep, and then run
Oh
20
no.
miles in the morning after teaching and then teach 3 classes. So I get injured a couple miles into the marathon. I go to the medical tent, and they're gonna massage my legs, and they're like, basically, you gotta just have a seat. And I'm like, look, my boss is here, my best friend is here, my mom was there. They're all here to see me complete. I'm not stopping. Like, not
Yeah.
happening. And they're like, there's the gold car. You gotta stop. And I'm like, I don't think so. So I finished a marathon with 2 IT bands locked up.
Ooh.
I mean, it took me so long that all my support went home because I was supposed to do it in 3 hours. So
Yeah.
I get done this marathon. No one's there. I got no money. I can't even get into the taxi cab because my legs are so swollen. Oh, it was a nightmare. Then I have to go to the hospital, and my quads are they're real swollen, and this doctor wants to give me an IV to make sure the muscle fibers don't go through the kidneys. This man walks in, and he starts laughing at me, and I look at him, and I'm like, "What are you laughing at? Like, I'm injured." And he said that I was in the army and the same thing happened to my biceps. He had all this lactic acid fill his biceps from constantly doing
Yeah.
bicep curls. So my quads were basically just overused. I wasn't giving them any recovery. So I wind up for like a month injured, and it took time to get my legs back and racing again. And I started doing adventure racing then. But my point is, I was determined to finish this marathon, and the resulting injuries were not worth it. So, as a fitness trainer and coach, when someone is injured, they want to do a marathon, there are times I would advise them to do something different. And then in my own life, I didn't get married till later, much later,
Yeah.
because I kept trying to make things work
Yeah.
and I wouldn't quit. So, in the personal side, I met someone 5 years after my mom passed. Or no, right after my mom passed, and I dated him for 5 years. 5 years too long.
Oh Lord.
And so I wanted it to work so bad that I tried to make it work. And so what I realized, and my all my aunts and uncles are very determined people. My one uncle I'm going to see at the end of the month went to the Hall of Fame for wrestling. And so I'm blessed. I do have my grandmother was a nurse and became a lawyer at the age of 50. Taught law classes till her 80s. I went traveled all over Germany with her. So I've got like a lot of family members who are super motivated, but I've also seen them so motivated, so achievement oriented, where sometimes you need to pull back or change the direction, like you said. So I believe there's this true north, right? You stay focused on that true north. Like, this is what I'm going for, this is what I want to achieve. But sometimes there are obstacles that come up, and you don't let the obstacle determine you, but sometimes you have to respond to them. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes the obstacle may be, you know what, this relationship isn't right for me, so I need to sever ties and go somewhere else. Or running 5 days a week may not work for my body because I'm getting injured, so I need to cross train. And so luckily, I've been smart enough in fitness, having a lot of knowledge in it. I know that I need more recovery. So I've never gotten injured. That first marathon, I got injured. I've run 26 since then and haven't had one injury. So really, I really learned from that, luckily. But I think when you have a situation where you see that you have options, I think it's smart to stay focused, but also be conscious of what's going on in the process. And sometimes changing directions is okay as long as you have a plan. Because I think what happens is someone says, okay, I want to run a marathon. I'm so excited about it. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to do a 3 hour marathon just like I was. And then all of a sudden they get this nagging feeling in their glute. And they're like, oh my God, my glute's killing me, my lower back. Oh, but I'll be fine. I'll just ride the bike. But it keeps nagging, it keeps nagging. And then you go to do 26.2 miles and you're screwed. You're injured for a year, maybe longer. So instead of ignoring the signs, it's saying, okay, I've got this nagging, maybe go to a chiropractor, go to get physio. So, and maybe I'm not doing that marathon in October, but maybe I can do one at the end of November. So that's where I've been. And, this comes with wisdom and years, but I think the reason my life has become so much better in the last 10 years is I've looked and said, okay, I have a goal. What do I want to achieve? And what's the best way to get there? And if something comes up that's going to interfere with that, how do I need to change course so that I'm still happy and still successful with my plan? And so sometimes that plan needs to change course, and it's okay. I think at the end of the day, I want to achieve things, but what's more important is that I'm doing it the right way and that I'm happy with the results.
Yeah. No, it's for someone of your caliber, it's such an interesting question because, so many people that are successful, they'll just say it's the grit, it's the perseverance, it's like just keep going. But then there's another part of this. It's like you do have to pay attention to your mind, your spirit, your body, and there is recalibrations. We don't always get it right. Things
Mhm.
change, life events happen, and like we go through. But it's a delicate balance because you don't want to give up on things too soon, but you also have to recognize like some things just need to change a little bit. So it's interesting to hear your approach to that. Well, let's dive into. I'm so curious of what you're going to say here, but like when you think of like the habit right now that serves you the most for your mental health and your success, what is the one habit right now that you can't live without?
I think the biggest thing for me has always been surrounding myself with people that encourage me to or help me thrive. I think that habit is always spending time with those people that make me thrive, and I think that's something that has helped me in running. It's helped me in my fitness, my strength. That's why I enjoy obstacle course racing. Um, and when I look back, like I had just posted about winning second place with Spartan and being able to go to the obstacle course world championships. And my high school teacher commented and was like, oh, congratulations, so proud of you, Madeline. And you know, he said to me when I was in high school, he said, Madeline, you're too brilliant to be wasting time. And so I said to him, I was like, you're one of my motivators. But having him as a professor, having some of my college professors, having the girls I ran cross country with, the guys I ran cross country with, having the students in my classes, some of the doctors I trained, just surrounding myself with this mindset of that motivates me and shows me I'm capable is what really has helped me to push on and achieve so many goals.
I was wondering if you were going to come back to that because when you were first talking about fitness when we started, one of the things you mentioned so quickly was the social component to it, was the making of the friends,
Mm.
and clearly you're bringing that full circle. Let's dive into that a little bit. And I'm curious, you didn't use any of these words specifically, but I'm wondering, like, is there an accountability factor that's woven into the friend part? Like, you don't strike me as someone that needs it necessarily to exercise, but clearly, like, having friends woven in through exercise and events is very helpful from that. Is that part of it at all, or?
You see, I think the accountability is a factor, but it's not at the core of me. I mean, for example, when I've taught 4 classes in a day and I'm tired,
Mhm.
meeting my friend to run is really, it's like really enjoyable to me.
Okay.
And I think one, I really enjoy running, and then two, I really enjoy doing it with a friend. And maybe a friend that might be a little bit better than me. It pushes me. So that accountability to make me go faster. And to have that time with someone. I think when you work a lot, especially as a fitness professional, I'm always teaching people and stuff. So while I'm around those people, I'm not necessarily giving myself my own time unless I'm doing my own fitness. But I think I think the accountability, but having that just positive environment around me. Because so in my classes, you know, if I have people who are really, like, for example, I taught a spinning class this morning, and it's at the oldest private club in all of New Zealand. So it's very motivated and successful people. So they're pushing as hard as they can. I mean, they're driving.
Yeah.
So my job is to motivate them to go to get to that next level. They're pushing as hard as they can. Every time I watch my students, that motivates me to give more to them, right?
Yeah.
So having that constant positive environment that drives me. But overall, I think the biggest thing is I know what I'm capable of. And if I don't give that, I'm disappointed in myself. I mean, I've just, we all have 24 hours in a day, right? So if I don't do that run or spend time hanging on a bar, and I know I have an obstacle course coming up, I'm just disappointed in myself. And so there's this spiral that can, like, I will get frustrated because I've got a plan. And if I don't execute that plan, then I won't be successful. So I plan all of these goals. And the idea is I want to do well in this obstacle course race. And a lot of people say, okay, I'm going to go do this marathon, or I'm going to do this obstacle course race, or I'm going to run a 5K, a 10K. To me, that's the icing on the cake. I don't care about the race. I care about the training to get there. And to me, it's the training, the journey that I thrive on. It's that consistency every day of saying, I lifted every morning, I ran every morning, and I feel like a rock star today. I
Yeah.
went through that pain, man. That was so brutal. That was so hard. My forearms feel like they're on fire, but I can't believe I did that. I know I can. I'm killing it, and I just 5 days in a row, and I feel like I feel great. And so I think it's putting in that work every day that makes me. It just like that's what I thrive on. That's what excites me.
Yeah, it makes you feel alive. So is the social component to it? I mean, it sounds like, and just correct me if I'm wrong, the social element of all this is highly woven in through exercise. I mean, you didn't
It
mention
is.
like I'm going to the bar with my friend or we're going to the movies. I mean, maybe there's some of that, but it sounded like you have exercise which is just so ingrained in who you are, and then you layer on top of the exercise, not for accountability, but this the social factor, which is motivates you and pushes you to perform at a higher level and really just supports the thing that you love a lot, which is fitness and whatnot. Is that sort of the way that you think of it?
Yeah, it is. And I mean, some might take this the wrong way, but I don't need friends to go bar hopping with. I don't need friends to go to the cheesecake factory with. I mean, I want friends that I motivate and motivate me back. I want friends to thrive with.
Yeah.
And so I have friends, like I have a girlfriend who loves Alfa Romeo cars. I'm not really into cars, but I love her as a person, and I love her. I love that she's passionate about those cars.
Yeah.
But I don't have friends who are doing things that are not going to build their confidence. Like I don't make time for any of that, because if they're not happy, then we're probably not going to be happy together. It's just, so
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, and so people are like, "Oh, do all your friends have to run and everything?" I'm like, no, they don't have to run, but maybe they have to go to a cycle class, or they have to go to a yoga class, or maybe they have to go on a hike. Like I surround my environment with people that I feel like I have something in common with, and we all thrive together. And there's nothing better than like taking a friend, going to a run on a run with a friend, and you guys both feel awesome after. So that's kind
Yeah.
of my feeling on it.
No, that's great. That's great. I'm so curious. Do you do any, or are all of your exercises woven in with friends, or do you do any of it solo? Like, do you do any
Oh
runs?
yeah, no,
You do? Okay.
I do. I do a lot of running solo, and sometimes it's very calming, and it helps me clear my head. And like sometimes I'll just
Yeah.
go for a run and
Yeah.
just like enjoy the water. I was running one day, and it's a really windy, and the water just comes and hits me in the face, and I just like was smiling for the next hour thinking like, how great is this, and sometimes I just want to be one with nature, so I enjoy that too.
There's definitely somebody listening to this and being like, she is a lunatic. Like, because so many people, this, you're a fitness coach. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know why this is the case, but so many people shy away from physical exertion. Like it is mind-boggling to me that like daily movement, and we're talking daily movement, so that could clearly be a walk, right? It could be something
yeah,
benign. It could be playing frisbee. Clearly there are much more intense stuff out there, but the average person, especially like in America, which I pay a lot of attention to, does not move their body, let alone do any of the more strenuous stuff that you're mentioning. And for all the reasons that you love it, I love it as well. Like, makes you feel alive. Like, I like to know that you can push yourself beyond what you think you're capable of. It could be pouring rain outside, and I think there's a lot of beauty in going running in like
yeah,
pouring rain. And like, don't
mhm,
mistake that. It's not like I love running in rain, but there is sort of a beast mode of like, it doesn't have to be butterflies and sunshine. You can go experience the world for what it is. Nature is beautiful. But it was so interesting as you're talking about friends, and why you do it. I do all my runs by myself, and I
yeah,
love it. But a lot of the reason why I don't run with people is part of the reason why you do train with people is you found people to train with you who are at your level or can push you slightly above your level. And
yeah,
I won't run with somebody unless they're at my pace or can run slightly better, because it's just not enjoyable. I got a
yeah,
couple of friends that are runners, but unfortunately they're just not as quick. And I'm like, well, when you get a little faster, we'll go.
yeah. You're like, keep training.
Yeah, keep training. No, that's so interesting. Let's flip over to mindset, and in a lot of ways, I recognize mindsets can sort of precede habits, because you've got to pick what you want to focus on.
Mhm.
Is there a particular mindset that serves you well at this stage of your life, that is sort of like the number one mindset that you carry with you day in and day out?
Yeah, God gave me this ability, and it's my duty to use what I can. Like for example, I was doing pull-ups last night, and it's 6:30 at night. I'm tired. I had a long day. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I can do this. Why wouldn't I do it? Like, why wouldn't I do it? I have the ability to do it, so why wouldn't I? I would, if you can do something, you never know when you're not going to have the opportunity to do something, right?
Yeah.
So when you have the opportunity, use it. You know, there people die, earthquakes happen, COVID happens, injuries happen. There's things happen all the time. So when you have that opportunity, use it. And I don't just say that because I lost my mom, but it's true. Like people say, "Oh, I can't go on a diet. It's not the right time. I'm not. I'll start working out when I get in shape." There's so many excuses why not to do something. My thought process is I have the opportunity right now. The busier I get, I realize, man, I might only have 20 minutes to run. Just go get it done. Go get it done. And I don't let myself think about it. I just do it. And I think that's the biggest thing is, people go, "Oh, I can't work out because I only have 5 minutes," or "I can't work out because I haven't in 2 years." Well, just go for that walk. Spend 5 minutes walking. You will always feel better if you give something. So every opportunity I can to do something, I take that opportunity. Whether I feel like it or not, I just go for it. And I don't let myself second guess it because if I don't do it, you may not have that opportunity later in the day. It's like you and I were talking about before. You run first thing in the morning because you might have kids, you might have a wife, you might have a podcast come up. There's always things that come up in your day. So take the time you now to do something because it may be too late later.
I'm so curious the way you're framing that. You know, for a lot of people that struggle to take action, which clearly is not something you struggle with, but there's sort of different ways to tease it out of people, right? It's like imagine where you want to be in a year, if you're capable of doing that. If not, shorten the distance of time. For those people that can sort of look into the future, the most profound one is, imagine you're on your deathbed, right? Like imagine
Yeah.
you're on your deathbed and you're writing the final pages of your story. What regrets might you have at that moment? And that's a really difficult thing. Like it's an exercise that I find very helpful, but I think a lot of other people are like, wow, that feels very morbid. Like I don't want to think about that. But in a lot of reality, like if you pay attention to the way people think as they're writing those final chapters, there are regrets, right? And sort of to your
Hmm.
point of like, you don't know whether you'll get the rest of today, let alone tomorrow, I think can have very profound impacts on the decisions that you make. And let's be honest, your whole life is just a bunch of little decisions woven together. And so I'm curious for you with that mindset, are you taking it all the way to the end? Are you taking it all the way to the end of your life and thinking about like what is going to make my story the best story that Madeline could possibly have, or is that do you not think like that?
It's weird because I have so many goals that I'm just focused on the next thing at hand. And a lot of
Okay.
times I just focus on them that very moment, which probably can drive some people around me crazy. But I think, okay, so for example, I'm doing a death race, and the death race, I actually have to hold a sign up that says I may die.
Oh no.
And it's the hardest race that Spartan offers. So when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I've got a death race in 4 weeks. I have to be able to, I want to complete it. So today I need to get up and work out. And I think what helps me is I have a goal in a few weeks and I only have a few weeks left to be ready for that goal.
Okay.
So if I don't work out today and let's say next week I'm flying for 2 days to the US, I'm not going to have that time anyway. Or I go to the movies with my husband, or I have all these social functions. I don't have time. So what I realize is I start to get aggravated with other people if they take so much of my time. And part of that is my own responsibility. Like I'll teach a class today at 12:30, 1:30, and then someone at the end of the class will say, well, can you tell me how to get in shape? And then I'll spend half an hour talking with them. And then all of a sudden it's like at 2 o'clock and I haven't eaten lunch yet, etc. So I build in these times because they're automatically going to happen. You get a call from your kid's school, or someone calls you and they need your help. Rather than let that derail me, I focus on the time I have now and what I need to do to achieve that goal that's in 4 weeks. So every minute is critical, especially when you have something you're working towards. And, rather, a lot of people say, I've got a marathon in 4 months, so I'll just start training in 3 months. And then 3 months passes by, I have 2 months, and then 1 month, and all of a sudden they get to the marathon and they're injured after the marathon because they never trained. But
Yeah.
the marathon isn't the big deal, it's the journey. And that's where I get all my confidence. I mean, it's everything that the runs that are brutal, the runs in the snow for 2, 3 hours. But that is what's so fun. I remember
Mm.
taking a conference call and I'm running in the snow and I'm like, because it's so cold out and it was so tough. And my coworker was like, were you running? I'm like, oh my God, did everyone know on the conference call?
Oh my God. Yeah. Confidence comes from preparation. I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any need to wing the final event. It's to your point, you enjoy the journey. You either like the training or you don't like the training. And if you do the training right, or you could bring it back to academics. I remember when I was getting a degree in economics and finance, my first couple tests, I failed so miserably. And it was because I was hoping on test day that somehow all the information just perfectly aligned and I could deliver the answer. And after I think maybe it was the first couple tests, I was like, this is such a horrible feeling to have such anxiety on the day of and like hope that I get it right. And so there was just a massive recalibration of like, that won't happen again. Like I'll do the preparation. And I actually remember after the preparation, I would look forward to the test because the test was just the
Yeah.
opportunity to flex what you knew. There was no
Yeah.
anxiety. It's like, I know it or I don't. And I think races are a great way, or some sort of physical event is a great way to like, hey, you've done all the work or you haven't done the work. Right. And
Mhm.
that event is really just the opportunity for you to shine and, show the world what you've done. So I totally resonate with that. Um, are there, are there any habits or mindsets that are, I guess, under construction for you? Like they're ones you want to either be building, or maybe it's a bad habit that you're trying to completely deconstruct, but are there ones that we could say are like under construction at this time for you?
Yeah, so one of the things I've been working on is as I change my schedule and I moved to New Zealand a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, but I'm doing New Zealand and also traveling a lot to the US, back to the US and Australia, and I'll be moving back to the US. So in this course of traveling so much, I've had challenge with just the consistency of my eating patterns.
Mm,
And so one thing I did recently is I'm a certified nutritionist, but I worked with a dietitian who works with a lot of like the UFC fighters to just get with my change of workout routines and stuff because I started doing a lot more strength training is trying to get to a regular eating habit with the foods available to me in this country. And I think when we have challenges, I think one of the best things we can do is reach out to an expert because oftentimes when we have changes that happen, and for a lot of people it was COVID, right? So they had COVID and all of a sudden they're working from home and they're getting frustrated because they're not around coworkers, or maybe they're slacking because they don't have any formal meetings. Whatever it may be, when our schedules change, I think that's the best opportunity to really look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what's working, what's not. And for me, what I found was I was teaching so much and the foods I was used to eating, I no longer had access to. So, for example, this sounds silly, but I used to eat a lot of ground turkey. So I'd have ground turkey, sweet potato, and broccoli. And it was like, hands down, great energy. I had every day at 12 o'clock. Now I come to New Zealand, there's no like ground turkey.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm like, why isn't there any ground turkey? It sounds so silly, but when you're used to something, changing it up, it just might. And you go to a restaurant, you can't get any grilled chicken. I mean,
Huh.
a lot of it has sauces on it. I want a salad in the US, I go to Sweet Green. I can get a salad at any time of day, anywhere in the US. Here, mm-mm, no.
Well, I
And
gotta
with
ask,
protein,
why is there no ground turkey or grilled chicken? Like, I just feel like, I mean, I'm from the U.S. obviously, so they just feel so commonplace. Like, what's the deal? What's going on?
so Wellington, New Zealand's like it's fish and chips.
Okay.
So even if you go to a restaurant and you want fish, grilled fish, no, it's only fried. So, and a lot of stuff is fried, and there's no, you can't get broccoli on the side. You can't get a just plain salad. Like if it comes out with a bunch of dressing on it and cheese and onions and whatever, well, that's just how it comes.
Oh Lord, you can't say hold the dressing, huh?
It's a
Wow.
weird
Yeah.
kind of discussion, but
Yeah.
th- rather than fight the process, I got to figure out how to make it work for me. And I
Mm.
think that's my biggest lesson in moving overseas, especially in an area that you think is going to be all healthy,
Yeah.
is figure it out. And so what I did was say, instead of, you know, I've taught 4 classes, I've got 2 conference calls, and all of a sudden, I'm like, I hadn't had breakfast, right? So if I don't have oatmeal or you can't get egg whites, like you got to
Yeah.
put the eggs in the refrigerator so that you can get the white of it. Otherwise, they'll just run together. Silly stuff, but you know what? You got to have a plan and you got to make it happen. And so what I did was I hired a dietitian and said, okay, here's the deal. I'm working out at 5. I'm waking up at 4, working out at 5. I've got an hour break, then I'm teaching at 7. Then I'm teaching at 9. I got to figure out when in the day I need to eat, and it's got to be consistent
Yeah.
because of all my activity. When I teach a cycle class, when I run, when I lift, I want to make sure I'm not cannibalizing muscle. And this is all critical because of my upcoming races.
Yeah.
But now I'm teaching 8 o'clock at night for clients in Germany and clients in London. I mean,
Yeah.
so with everything going on, your nutrition is your good fuel, and it's not as easy to just go down the street and get a salad. I
Yeah.
mean, there was a day I went to 3 grocery stores, I couldn't even get lettuce.
Man, you're taking the idea of meal prep to like a whole nother level here. Like most people struggle just with like a Sunday meal prep, go to the grocery store, maybe prepare some healthy stuff. But this is like next level meal prep. But point well taken.
So I just had that was something I said, okay, I need to get this better.
Yeah.
And I need to say, instead of just trying to like make something or throw something together, let me try to get in a really good schedule because it's really going to help my energy. So that was something important for me that I realized I could clean up and make better. And
Yeah.
in general, most people, maybe someone doesn't care so much about how they eat or their exercise or their goals or this or that. It's not about making everything perfect. It's just saying, you know what? I would like to play ball with my kids.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to play ball with my kids. So what do I need to do as a parent to feel better so I'm not like run after my kids out of breath? Or I have to walk up these stairs. How do I feel better walking up the stairs? And it may not be hiking a mountain like I do, or doing a trail run like you do, or doing an obstacle course race like I do. It's just getting into a consistent schedule and saying, you know what, I'm going to walk five flights of stairs every day until they get easier. And or I'm going to go to the gym and go on the step mill or the elliptical and just get my weight down by 5 pounds because I know my knees will feel better doing that. And for most people, it means hiring a trainer or finding a group of people to do it with. The one of the women that I'm training online now in London, she hadn't done anything for herself in years, and she is lovely. I mean, lovely. She was with her friend in Germany. I was teaching online to her friend in Germany, and her friend, she had so much fun. She goes, "I love this." She loved it so much, and I don't know if it was me or her friend or what, but she had so much fun after 3 days, and she hadn't worked out in so many years. So I said, "You know what? Do this for you. Do it for your kids. Your kids are going to see you on the TV working out, and how awesome they're going to be inspired." And she has kids that are 2 and 7. And now she's hooked. They want to work out every day. I'm like, dude, I can't work out every day at night. But the coolest thing is now she's got that accountability where she meets with myself and other girls, and online they work out together. And I can tell the energy in just 4 times. Like when I see that smile on her face, I'm like, oh my God, this is priceless. Like if I don't feel like working out at 8 o'clock at night or doing this, it is so motivating to me because she's loving it. So I really think that people are limiting themselves if they don't take the opportunities people give them. You never know if you're going to like yoga. You never know if you're going to like biking. You never know if you're going to like pizza. You just don't know if you're going to like anything unless you go and try it. And
Well, let me ask you this though, and this is a little bit of a deviation from maybe some of the set questions I typically ask, but I mean, you coach so many people. Like, I mean, you understand and I understand like all these things you're mentioning, from goal planning and priorities to being in nature to the social aspect to nutrition. Like all of these have such profound positive effects on your mental health, your well-being, your longevity, your happiness. Why do you think so many people don't prioritize these things? Like what's your intuition tell you? Like why so? Because this isn't like, it's almost like an epidemic of people that don't do these things. It's not like there is a small circle of people on our planet that don't eat right or exercise. Like the vast majority of people don't do these things. Like what? Why do you think that is?
comfort. It's more comfortable to sit in the couch and watch TV than it is to get up. And it's the fear of failure. I think it's, you know, Joe DeCino and Spartan Race just did this cool post, and it's all about being uncomfortable. Think about this. You're going to go to a big dinner and you don't know anyone in the room, no one. And you have to go to this dinner, you got to figure out where to sit. You don't know what the menu is. 99 out of 100 people would say, I don't really need to go to dinner. They
Yeah.
wouldn't go because they don't know if they're going to get along with everyone. They don't know if what they're wearing is going to be suitable. They don't know if they're going to like the food. They'll give you a million excuses why they shouldn't go to the dinner. And that's just going to a dinner. And maybe it's the discomfort to be around people you don't know, but let alone go on a run. Do you know how many people I say, hey, you want to go on a run? They don't know my pace, but they just think, oh, they wouldn't keep up with me. They could run a 5 minute mile and they still think they couldn't keep up with me because it's that uncomfortable feeling. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if people don't like me? And you know what? You're never going to know. You know, the funniest thing, when I see people do obstacles, I see a 300-pound person fly across those monkey bars, and then I see a 100-pound person who can't even get up to the first bar. And it's all in your mindset. So, you know what? I think people should do something uncomfortable every single day. Because the more uncomfortable you are, the easier that it gets. It's never easy when you first go for a run. And if you haven't done a run in a while, it's going to suck. But you have to embrace it. You have to say, you know what? This might be hard for me today, and I'm okay with that. Like cycling, teaching cycling is so easy for me because I've done it for so long. But I hadn't taught CrossFit in years and I teach it. And I always get nervous teaching it because I don't teach it all, I teach it once a week. So, but I know that after having taught for so long, I'm really good at it. And
Yeah.
I think that's what it takes is getting yourself uncomfortable and then doing it enough till you get good at it. Anyone can get good at anything. It's just putting your ego to the side. And I think people are, oh, I've got anxiety. Well, guess what? Everyone gets anxious when you're doing something that you don't know how you're going to do. I mean, you go to a race, you don't know if you're going to race against the best or the worst. You know, sometimes you go to a race and you're like, man, all these people are so fast. And then sometimes I go to a race, I'm like, how did I do so good? Right?
Yeah.
You just don't. But you know what? When you race against someone so fast, it makes you go even faster than you thought you could.
Yeah,
So,
there's an interesting thing to unweave and being uncomfortable, because I think in some ways you could argue so many people are just uncomfortable not doing those things, right? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm sure you have these types of conversations, but I'll talk with whether it's colleagues or friends, and you can sense that they're like, they have an unease to their life, right? It's like they're going through the motions, and I don't know that they can fully articulate it, but you can tell that they're just unhappy. Maybe it's their job, maybe it's their career, maybe
mm,
it's their weight, it's a variety of things, and maybe it's just all those things stacked together. And they're almost like a deer in headlights, where they're so scared of making a change, but yet they're
mhm.
so comfortable being uncomfortable that
But
it's
it's
like,
weird. Yeah, but I agree with what you're saying, but I would argue it too is that it's comfortable going to work every day,
yeah,
doing the same thing every day. It's comfortable waking up, having your coffee, saying hello to your kids, going to the office, going through the same conversation, having the same meetings. It's a comfort while they may not, there's a difference between comfort and unhappiness.
yeah,
Comfort and unhappiness breed are often the same thing. Discomfort and thriving to me are the same thing. So when I say that, it's very comfortable sitting on the couch watching a movie while I don't feel like I'm excelling. I was watching, it's so funny. I'm with my husband, and Biggest Loser came on, and one of my friends was the coach on Biggest Loser, Jen Widerstrom. So I'm watching it, and he hands me these Tostitos, and he's like, "Here," and it's like they're on the show, and she's like, "Yeah," she goes, "So you just want to sit there, be lazy, and eat chips?"
oh
And
no,
I'm like, "Oh my God." It was the funniest moment. But the point is,
yeah,
do we want to sit on the couch and eat chips, or do we want to go for a run?
yeah,
The run may not feel like a comfortable thing right now, especially when you're tired, sore, whatever, but that's where you're going to create a successful life. And I think most people would rather go to an office, have a stable paycheck, do the things they do every day, than take the risk
yeah.
of going out on their own. So I would argue that
Mm.
while you're unhappy, you're very hard chance of becoming successful.
Yeah, it's really predictable. I think people are willing to take that. All right, final question I got for you here. So, sort of a more macro perspective based on all your understanding, and it probably coincides with what we were just discussing. But when you see all of the challenges that we face as a society, so this is above and beyond, New Zealand or the U.S., but just society as a whole. Is there a particular habit or a particular mindset that you wish you could just wave a wand and every human being had? And if they had this, it would sort of nudge us in a more loving and kind direction. Like, is there one mindset or one habit that sort of stands above the rest that would push us in a more positive direction?
Just try anything. Like just just go for it. Like I think what happens is there's this mindset of what if? What if we
Mm.
fail? What if we fall? What if people don't like us? What if I embarrass myself? Forget the what ifs and just do it. Because if you then you get up, then you're probably going to be better because you learned how to do it better the second time, right? So just don't worry what other people think. You know, it's funny, people go, "Oh, I don't want to go to a gym. What if everyone's looking at me?" No one's looking at you. No one cares what you're doing. They're looking at themselves in the mirror. I mean, I don't know what
Yeah.
it is. People think, "Oh my God, if I post something, what are people's opinion?" You know what? If you're really you want to get better and you want to live the most of life, just get out there and do it. There's no way you're going to get worse by trying.
Yeah. Well said. And the thing about going to the gym and people paying attention to you is I think it took me reading some books on neuroscience is the vast majority of our individual thoughts are highly focused on ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's like something like 90% of our thought. So if you ever think someone's like paying over attention to you or worried about the stain you have on your shirt, they're not. They're because they're focused on themselves. And so you should take some comfort in the fact of, don't over index on the way other people are thinking.
Plus, I mean, like, I'm at the gym and I'm looking at this guy. One, he's like on his toes, checking out his calves, walking on his toes, checking out his calves in the mirror. Then
Yeah.
I look at another guy and he's playing Words with Friends on his iPad on the step mill. I'm like, do you really think that guy who's trying to win on Words with Friends is paying attention to what you're doing? Like,
Oh,
no.
that's all.
And I think if someone was paying attention to you, you should really take it as a compliment. I mean, but
Seriously.
really in life, most people will support you along the way. And I think rather than waiting for a right time, I think the time is to go for it now because life is short and the opportunities we get, a lot of people say, is it luck? Is it opportunity? Is it how hard you work? And I think there's the hard work and the luck, they come together because a lot of times we all get the same opportunity. Who runs the opportunity first? People say, "Oh, well, you know, she got this or he got that." It's like, look, someone was dangling that $100 bill. It's who ran to get the $100 bill first, right? Or
Yeah. There's a famous quote that says luck favors the prepared.
yeah,
So just be prepared.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, Madeline, this was amazing. Thank you so much for all your time. Where can people go to learn more about you? Like where's the right place?
So my website is madfitness.com, not because I'm crazy, just a little mad. That they were my initials, so it's the madfitness.com. And then my Instagram is my name, which is Madeline Dolente. So it's just at Madeline Dolente. And then my website, there's an option to send me an email anytime.
Perfect. And we'll include all that stuff in the show notes, so we'll make it super easy for people just to click a button and go find you. So, Madeline, this was amazing. Thank you so much. You're a wonderful guest. And yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Standard. Before we go, click on the link in the show notes of this episode to learn more about today's guest. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with somebody who you think would benefit from it as well.